Great day and welcome to America's Dark Skin Past. I'm your host, Tavis Sanders, also known as Red Tail Hawk. I'd like to welcome my mother, our co-founder, and our co-host, Red Silver Fox, also known as Renee Sanders.
Greetings, everyone.
And thank you. I'm always happy to introduce my mom. And so today's show is we're going to take a look at history and the Spanish conquistadors, the Spanish explorers, and what they did here in the Americas, but particularly on mainland United States. Let's discuss in more details the history of the United States prior to Jamestown in 1607.
Okay. Well, prior to let's say after the discovery of the Americas and prior to the British colonies being started. Okay. Right after Columbus came over here and discovered the New World, the Pope granted Spain and Portugal power over the New World, to the new lands. Mm-hmm. Okay. In actuality, the Pope, he gave a dividing line, which gave Portugal everything to the east of that line, and it gave Spain everything west to the line. So that's why some of, when you go down into South America, that's why Brazil, they speak Portuguese. Mm-hmm. Okay. But on the other side of South America, they speak Spanish. Mm-hmm. And that was because of that dividing line. I really don't remember the name of it. It does have a name. But then the Pope expected everyone or everyone that was coming over, they gave them power over the people in the new lands. He had a papal bull which was called Inter Caetera, mm-hmm. and where it is said that they expect people to convert everybody over to Christianity. But even before that bull, even the bull that Columbus was underneath of, which was called the Romanix Pontifex. Okay, and even in that bull, the Pope gave him, and I'm going to read it, gave him the rights to invade, search out, capture, vanquish, and subdue their persons to perpetual slavery. So this was even the bull that was written I think this one was written somewhere in the mid 1400s, but it was before Columbus came over. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then the other one after Columbus discovered the lands, that's when the new bull came out. Okay. But again, when the Spanish came over, the indigenous people, they were the free labor. They became slaves and everything for the Spanish people. And again, that's what the Pope gave them permission to do.
Okay. So I know that, so we know that the Spanish and the Pope and, the Pope in Christianity was in charge for the most part. And then we had different nations that had the kings and queens and the monarchs that would rule that particular region or area.
Yeah, but they were all still
underneath the Pope.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And so I know that as a part of the Spanish exploration and conquering of the New World, there were certain requirements and certain systems.
The requirement, or is in Spanish, el requerimiento.
Okay.
All right. Which again, it was the requirement. They were expected, and even Columbus had a requirement, so-called requirement, to read to the people what they were encountering, I guess. Mm-hmm. In 1510, the Council of Castile, which were the Spanish who were in charge of the Spanish explorations, they in 1510 said that they were required. This is a requirement for them to read. I will read some of this to you, and then we'll discuss on the back end.
Okay.
It says, quote, we shall enslave your persons, wives and sons, sell you or dispose of you as the king sees fit. We shall seize your possessions and harm you as much as we can as disobedient and resisting vessels. And we declare you guilty of resulting deaths and injuries, exempting their highnesses of such guilt, and as well as ourselves and the gentlemen who accompany us. And this, again, this was required for them to read. Now we have to remember, these are Spaniards
Mm-hmm.
who are speaking Spanish. And they're required to read this. But they knew that they were reading it in a language that the people would not be able to understand. They may have read it in another language, but that would have been Latin, another language that they would not have understood. So in actuality, it really didn't matter how it was read, because it said that sometimes it was read to from an empty deck. I mean, from a deck on a boat, just out to wilderness. Okay, it said that it was read to the indigenous people as they turned their backs and they walked away. It was read to let me see. It was some other,
Empty forest. Just read to the trees.
Just read.
It's ridiculous.
Yes.
And one of the things that I wanted to point out as a part of just the quote itself is that the first, we say, shall be enslaved. And so, one of the things that we talk about that's not discussed as a part of the exploration of the Americas is the enslavement of the indigenous population upon arrival. It's like one of the charges that they have been given to by the Pope, who has been given authority by God, basically.
Yes.
And so to them, it's their God-given duty to rape, enslave, and place these people under servitude from the jump. Not slavery starting in 1619, slavery beginning in 1492, and particularly as we go forward, we're talking about the Spanish. The entire time the Spanish were interacting with the indigenous population. Yes, they were charged with that by God as they saw it.
Yes, and again, they were just carrying on what they had done previously.
Right.
So it was nothing new. Nothing new.
Okay, and so we were talking about, that was the requirement that they had to read as a part of their arrival and then their conquest, or before they begin to conquest, because people had to have an option to submit, whether we understand you or not.
Right.
Okay. Let's start talking about some of the systems that the Spanish used as a part of their exploration and interaction with, and real quick, if I may say, we're talking about southeastern portions of the United States also. And so we're talking about a collective culture of people that was called the Southern Cult at one time. And I just wanted to make sure that the public understands what culture of people we're talking about. We're talking about the Southern Cult, or the indigenous populations of the southeastern portions of the United States. And the history that interaction right there. However, before we get back to the question, we got to take a small break. And so we'll be back with more of America's Dark-Skinned Past.
We'll be right back.
Greetings. I'm Red Silver Fox, co-founder of Indeed Indigenous Education. And I would like to invite you to visit indedushop.com. That's indedushop.com, and help support our mission to educate the public of the omitted history of the brown and dark-skinned indigenous population of the Americas. And as always, we would like to thank you for your support.
Before we went to break, I wanted to introduce some of the systems that the Spanish were using to interact with the indigenous population, because I think that's very, very important as a part of even what we're dealing with today, and as far as the system is concerned on minority populations. And so I know one of the systems that the Spanish used was called the Encomienda. I hope I'm pronouncing it right.
Yes,
okay.
You are.
Cool.
Okay, well, encomienda, it comes from the Spanish word to entrust. And what it was, an encomienda was really like a patch of land that had people in it, and it was run by an encomendero.
Okay.
An encomendero was the person who was responsible for the encomienda, and the encomienda composed of people from maybe a village, a community, or something like that. And the encomendero was responsible for that village, the community, whatever it was. And it was responsible for them, and they were to give them protection.
Okay.
Okay. For those services, they solicited what was called a tribute. Mm-hmm. And the tribute was to pay them. So it was usually in the form of crops, or sometimes it could be gold or whatever it was, little tribute things to pay the encomendero.
Okay. And so, wait a second. So they get here and they read what is a requirement. We're going to read this requirement to you that we're going to enslave y'all if y'all don't bow down to our God. Mm-hmm. After that, they establish an Encomienda, which is an area that they're going to protect. And anybody within inside the borders of this area has to abide by the encomendero system, which is basically a tribute system.
It's a tribute system that pays them. And then what happens is that they start getting more money and they start becoming rich.
The encomenderos.
The encomenderos, yes.
Encomenderos.
Yes.
And so, and while the encomenderos get rich, everybody else is basically a slave.
The indigenous people or everyone who is up underneath the encomendero is basically a slave.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So again, when they speak about indigenous slavery not existing, they're just not reading history.
Well, their interpretation is flawed.
Okay. Okay. And so the encomendero system itself, we're going to skip over a little bit, is basically, well, first I want to acknowledge three things. Number one, this system that is being put in place by these explorers or adventurers is basically a way for the crown to pay its soldiers because, by not having to spend any money.
Right. Yes, exactly.
And so I skipped it, but I'm acknowledging, and we want to acknowledge that these adventurers, these explorers are soldiers. Mm-hmm. And so the individuals, the collective group that is reading the requirement, that is formalizing the encomienda and then making the requirement of the tribute system for themselves. These are all soldiers.
They're
They're not ambassadors. They're not diplomats. They're not statesmen. They don't represent the king in any way except you're my soldier. Go get me some land. Go find me some slaves and bring me back gold.
Yes, and they were given an ultimate title.
Okay.
And this title was called Lantaro.
Lantaro.
Now, this is a system. Again, this is another system. This is a system that was even happening during Roman times. Okay. And it was a military position. This was the system that the Spanish used to free themselves from the Moorish influence that they had been under for 700 years. So again, this was the system that they used to get themselves out of that. What it was is that this Lantaro, was sent into a hostile area. Okay, so he is in charge of all his soldiers. They're sent into a hostile area and they are to put that hostile area in control. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, that is the same system that they brought over here to the Americas. And
well, it worked against the Moors. Why wouldn't it work against?
Exactly.
Okay.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Mm-hmm. And they brought that system over here, and it worked very, very well for them. Very well. And these Lantaros, again, who were these military soldiers, the elite soldiers, they are now given the title Lantaro, but in our history books, they're called explorers.
And adventurers.
Or later on, adventurers.
Okay. So it's going to be up for slavery unless you convert to Christianity.
Yes, they were war expeditions.
They were warriors.
Yes,
okay.
they were warriors and they were war expeditions.
Period. And so let's talk about some of these warlords.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Call them by what they really are, right? These pirates. You know, the so-called explorers. You know, you talk about revisionist history right now. Man, goodness gracious. Let's talk about some of these Adelantados and let's mention a few. Again, you know them as famous explorers. We got statues, we got schools, we got roads named after them.
Oh, yeah.
Who are these people?
Okay, well, let's start from the first one then.
Okay.
All right, which was Ponce de Leon.
Ponce de Leon.
Okay. Now, Ponce de Leon, let me give a little bit of back history about him. He fought in the Battle of Granada, which was the last battle that the Spanish won in Spain to free themselves from the Moors. Okay, it was called the Fall of Granada. And Ponce de Leon, as a teenager, fought in that war. Okay, and then it was right after that war that Columbus was given the rights to exploration. Okay, the following year, which is in 1493, Columbus's second trip, Ponce de Leon is on the boat on that next trip to the Americas. Okay. Now remember, he's a soldier. He's an experienced soldier. Okay, young, experienced soldier.
He won his stripes.
Oh yes, and that's what they all
freeing
did.
themselves from the Moors.
Yes, and they wanted to become rich.
And as a matter of fact, as you can see, the fall of Granada, the people involved in that, you know, winded up being, you know, the people that we revere today. For a whole nother reason, you know, but okay, let's keep it going.
Okay, so Ponce de Leon, he's fighting in these battles on the island Hispaniola.
Right?
Okay, Hispaniola.
Okay.
And he gets an encomienda, okay, because he's this war hero.
Okay.
And he continues to fight battles, and he gets a very large encomienda on Hispaniola. After that, after more battles, he gets the entire island of Puerto Rico, where he is called the Encomendero. At first he's called the Encomendero, then he's called the governor of Puerto Rico.
Governor Adelantado.
Yes. Now, he gets named Adelantado a little bit later, but Adelantado, governor, you will see those terms. They
And again, really, they should be called what they are, soldiers.
Yes.
You know, that's what they really should be called. You know, we using these terms like governor as if they were, you know, politicians. These weren't politicians. They were soldiers. They did whatever they wanted to do.
And they did what they could do so that they could earn those rankings. Okay. So now after after Ponce de Leon, he gets Puerto Rico. Then he is given the rights of exploration because now the islands are starting to become depopulated. A lot of them are leaving. They said that they're dying, you know, but some of them are dying. But the islands are being depopulated, and they needed to find new slaves. And that is when Ponce is given the rights to exploration to find La Florida, and so that was his beginnings there.
And so now we have the Adelantado soldier saying, okay, we got to go find Florida. And because we need more slaves, we need more money, and we need more territory.
Yes. Now, the next Adelantado, okay, is another gentleman who is on the islands with Ponce de Leon, okay? And he's fighting in battles on the islands, and he also gets an encomienda. All right. He has some aristocratic parents also. His name is Lucas Vasquez de Ayan. Okay. Now, his parents they were a noble family in Spain. Okay. And he came and fought in battles, and he got the large encomienda. Again, remember, when they have the encomiendas, they're getting money because they're getting supplies and things. They're able to sell them back to Spain. They get rich. Okay. And because the islands are getting depopulated, he says, let's send out an exploratory expedition to see what's over there, what Ponce found. Okay.
In Florida.
Yeah. Yes. So he sends out an exploratory expedition in around 1521. Brings back about 60 people. They tricked 60 people on the boats. bring them back to Puerto Rico where they're held as slaves. But then a few years later, in 1526, Lucas Vasquez de Ayan starts the first colony on, it was Georgia. At first they thought it was South Carolina, then it went to Georgia. However, the colony didn't last long. It only lasted about 3 months. The gentleman got sick, he died, and the people didn't have a leader anymore, so everybody went back to the islands. That was your second one.
Okay. Now, I have DeSoto here.
Mm-hmm.
Where does DeSoto fit into this?
Okay, well, DeSoto is, there was another one named Narvaez. He was very unsuccessful.
Okay.
Insignificant almost. And then DeSoto. DeSoto comes in around 1539. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, he first, though, comes into the Americas in 1520. Okay. Where he is, he participates in an expedition in Mexico. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then he gets a large encomienda in Nicaragua. All right. While he is there, he meets up with Pizarro, and Pizarro gets named an Lantaro, and Pizarro's expedition is going into South America. So he's going down into Peru, and he makes DeSoto his captain. And the two of them went down and they captured the Incas, and it was, their story is very brutal. Pizarro was very, very brutal, and DeSoto right along with him.
That's his partner. And
yes,
so now DeSoto come and bring those tactics here.
Oh yes, most definitely. So he was given an encomienda, DeSoto, Cuba. He was given Cuba as an encomienda, and from there he was named Adelantado and given the rights to explore again La Florida, and that was around 1539.
Okay, and so back to the encomiendas. We talked about some of the Adelantados. Military soldiers, not explorers. Again, they're not explorers, they're conquerors.
That they were to discover, there was supposed to be exploration, conquest, pacification, and settlement. So those were the 5 things that they were supposed to do when they come here. They were supposed to discover things, they were then supposed to explore, then they were supposed to conquer. Then after they conquer, they're supposed to pacify the people, and then they're supposed to have a settlement.
Pacify. Isn't a new term for pacify subjugate?
Well, again, I'm sure there are other synonyms that you could use also.
All right. And so as a part of their charge, which is to establish a colony, mm-hmm. We mentioned that, well, again, as a part of mainstream history is concerned, we talk about Jamestown, and so now we're all the way in the 1600s before we talk about the colony of the Americas, And so, again, the first 100 years, we're talking about the Spanish conquest of La Florida, Georgia, South Carolina regions. Was there a colony established, and what was happening from that perspective?
Well, again, all of them, their purpose was to colonize. Okay. So all of them were attempting to colonize. Some of them may have had short success with a colony, mm-hmm. but none of the colonies lasted. The first colony that did last, and it is called the first city here in the United States, and that is St. Augustine. Mm-hmm. Okay. And St. Augustine was founded by the Adelantado Menendez de Aviles.
Okay.
It's the same hustle, it's the same thing, the same tears on everything. Maybe one day we'll see we're one big family, like it's one ghetto. It's the same sunshine, it's the same rain, the same struggle, just to maintain.
By the Adelantado Menendez de Aviles.
Okay. What's his background?
Okay, well, he was the last Adelantado on United States soil.
Okay.
His parents served as monarchs with the fall of Granada again. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. And
big deal.
Yes, and and they were friends with the monarchy and everything.
Okay.
So they were quite rich. When they died, they left Aviles a lot of money. Okay, and he decided not to follow in his parents' footsteps, but he decided to buy a ship, and he bought a ship, and he actually became a very good pirate.
Okay.
He was so good of a pirate that he got named captain of the fleet of the Indies.
So he wasn't a soldier. He was a pirate.
He was a pirate,
Okay.
right?
Still
Yes.
scrupulous.
Oh, very scrupulous. He did though fight in battles.
Okay.
You know, again, that's what pirates did.
Right, yeah.
And yeah, so there were many battles, and they said that the battles that he did fight in, and you know what, he was part of an army even before, when he was over in Spain, before he got named Captain General of the Fleet of the Indies.
All right.
You know, but in 59 or sometime in the mid 1550s, that's when he got named the Captain of the Fleet of the Indies, and he was in charge of all the pirating ships. And again, so that they can make safe passage back to Spain. And after that, and especially after Tristan de Luna, which was the next to last Adelantado in the United States soil, he became Adelantado in 1559. That was unsuccessful. A hurricane came and knocked out all the boats, and so that Adelantado was unsuccessful. And Menendez got named Adelantado after that got messed up. And so in 1565, he gets named Adelantado. He comes, and what he is supposed to do is to get rid of a French colony that had been established around St. Augustine. And that was his first charge. He came and he conquered. He killed them all. And then a couple of weeks later, and because there were some that did manage to escape, but 2 weeks later, when he came back, he came and killed all the women, the children, everybody. And of course, the Spanish government was very pleased with that. And he became governor of Florida.
Okay. All right. And so, and these are the Adelantados, the explorers, the pirates, and the soldiers that we revere today in our history.
Yes.
As the explorers and the discoverers of the lands that we inhabit today. And we'll just dismiss all of the brutal things that they did in order for this colonial system that we exist under today to be able to be, as a matter of fact. You know, and one of the things that, as we wrap it up, one of the things I want to make sure that we pay attention to is how many times the term slavery was used as a part of this conversation, referencing what they were doing, you know, as a part of their discovery and their exploration of these lands. You know, and so again, you know, Indian slavery is real.
Oh, definitely.
It's very important.
Very real, and it even carried on, and they even put it in their laws. But yeah.
And just to be while we're wrapping it up, just to bring it to why this matters for us today. I don't know if you know, but if you watch games and, you know, children's games and things like that, they have a online computer game called Adelantado. and so, you know, this is something that is still, you know, around. It's still somebody making money off of the idea of selling this Adelantado system on a computer instead of in real life. However, if you look at the system as is for what it was, a lot of the police systems of the cities are doing that, where they want the police officers, they have the officers move into the cities that they are policing so that they can become a part of that community. Sound like a Encomienda type of system to me. But I digress for now. You know, With that said, thank you very much. We hope you learned something. We hope you enjoyed the show. I always enjoy my mom. Thank you very much to Red Silver Fox, also known as Renee Sanders. And my name is Tavis Sanders, also known as Red Tail Hawk. We are co-founders of Indigenous Education, and we hope to see you next time. One.
Peace.